Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Now we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 22nd of February 2019, and the news that would be covered today is given on the screen, and the timestamp for the same is given in the description and the comment section given below. And so now with this, let us start with the first article. Now we have taken this opinion-based editorial from page 8. Now what this article talks about is that India has officially adopted a balancing approach within West Asia. Now what this means is that India does not get involved in regional disputes between the major powers that exist within West Asia. Now these major powers within West Asia are Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Iran. Now what this article is highlighting is that India has three major national interests that are linked with these three major West Asian powers. The first major national interest is of terrorism and security. The second major national interest is of economic opportunity. The third major national interest is the future of Afghanistan. Now, what this article is trying to do is showcase on how India is balancing these three major national interests that it has by maintaining balanced relationship with Saudi Arabia, Israel, and with Iran. Now you should see this article from the perspective of GS Paper 2 within the section International Relations and within the subsection India and its Neighborhood Relations, wherein this article specifically talks about West Asia. And apart from that, you should also understand it from the perspective of effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest. Whereby what we're going to understand from this article is how is the international politics with regards to West Asian powers such as Saudi Arabia, Israel, Iran are affecting three major national interests of India. Now, one of the most recent questions that has been asked in West Asia was asked in the mains examination in paper GS2 in 2017, whereby the question had asked that the question of India's energy security constitutes the most important part of India's economic progress. Analyze India's energy policy cooperation with West Asian countries. Whereby in this article, we're going to analyze India's balancing approach with regards to West Asian countries. Now, what is happening in West Asia with regards to terrorism and security is that Saudi Arabia intends to curtail the influence of terrorist groups which are being supported by Iran. And this policy of Saudi Arabia to curtail the influence of terrorist groups within West Asia also aligns with India's national interest of curbing terrorist organizations throughout the world. While Israel has also continued to fight terrorist organizations within West Asia, and apart from this, Israel has also supported India against terrorist organizations which are placed within Pakistan. However, what is happening is that Iran continues to support terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah, and this support given by Iran to terrorist organizations is against the morals of India's foreign policy. Now, within this regard, the policy of Saudi Arabia, which wants to curb terrorist organizations which are supported by Iran, and similarly, the policy of Israel, which wants to curb terrorist organizations worldwide, converges with the foreign policy of India. While the policy of Iran, which is supporting terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah against Israel, is against the moral principles that India holds that there should not be any form of state support to terrorist organizations. However, with regards to terrorism and security, there is another perspective on how it is again changing India's balanced foreign policy approach with regards to West Asian powers. Whereby what is happening is that Israel and Iran are against the terrorist organizations which are supported by Pakistan. However, with regards to terrorist organizations which are supported by Pakistan, Saudi Arabia continues to maintain a balanced position between India and Pakistan. Whereby what is being seen is that the terrorist organizations within Pakistan are largely influenced by the Wahhabist ideology that is supported by Saudi Arabia. And apart from this, what was also seen was that Saudi Arabia supported Pakistan in fighting the Soviet Union during the Afghan War. And with regards to this, Saudi Arabia gave a lot of money and weapons to Pakistan so that they could be supplied to Afghans who were fighting the Soviet Union within Afghanistan. However, what Pakistan did was fund these money and the weapons that was given by Saudi Arabia to Pakistan to increase militancy within Jammu and Kashmir during the early 1990s. And what was seen was that Saudi Arabia either did not decrease its funding or the weapons that it was supplying to Pakistan, even though they were being used to increase militancy within Jammu and Kashmir. And even recently, what is being seen is that Saudi Arabia continues to maintain a balanced position between India and Pakistan with regards to the Kashmir issue. And what is also being recently seen is that Saudi Arabia continues to maintain a balanced position between India and Pakistan, such as during the recent terrorist attack in Pulwama, whereby Saudi Arabia did condemn the terrorist attack, but it did not put any form of pressure or name Pakistan as being the cause of that terrorist attack. And therefore, this is one of the balanced approach that India requires to maintain within West Asia. The second national interest that the article talks about is of economic opportunity. Now, what is currently being seen is that the US sanctions upon Iran makes it very unlikely that Iran can invest within India. However, what was recently seen was that Saudi Arabia has promised to invest $100 billion within India. However, within that regard, Saudi Arabia becomes a better economic opportunity for India than Iran. However, what is currently happening, as most of you know, is that India has invested within the Chabahar port within Iran, whereby what this Chabahar port does is that it provides connectivity to Central Asia. And apart from that, it also provides India strategic depth within Afghanistan, whereby it provides the direct connections from India to Afghanistan. Now, therefore, what is currently being seen is that the investment that Saudi Arabia is making into India, which is worth around $100 billion, is basically providing India with commercial economic opportunity. However, India's investment within the Chabahar port within Iran is providing India with strategic economic opportunity, whereby it connects India to Central Asia and also allows India to bypass Pakistan so as to increase its connectivity within Afghanistan. And apart from Saudi Arabia and Iran, with regards to Israel, India and Israel are engaging in both the aspects, whereby, with regards to commercial economic opportunities, Israeli companies are investing in desalination plants, artificial intelligence, and other aspects. And with regards to strategic economic opportunity, what is being seen is that India and Israel are jointly producing defense equipments. Now, the last main national interest that the article talked about, with regards to India's balanced approach with three major powers within West Asia, being Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Iran, is of the future of Afghanistan. Now, what is being seen is that Iran's policy within Afghanistan has converged with the foreign policy of India, whereby both the countries, Iran and India, look for a limited role of Taliban and of Pakistan within the future of Afghanistan. While what is being seen with Saudi Arabia is that it has been supportive of Pakistan's role within Afghanistan, whereby what Saudi Arabia wants is a decreased role of Iran within Afghanistan. And for this decreased role of Iran within Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia has been supporting the increased role of Pakistan and of Taliban within the future of Afghanistan. And this foreign policy of Saudi Arabia is against the foreign policy of India, whereby India wants a decreased role of Taliban and of Pakistan within the future of Afghanistan. And what is being seen through this is that India's position within Afghanistan is much more in convergence with Iran and not in convergence with that of Saudi Arabia. However, what is being seen with Israel is that Israel has largely maintained an outsider role with regards to the future of Afghanistan. However, it is understood that Israel would be supportive of India's position of having a decreased role of the Taliban and of Pakistan within Afghanistan. But nevertheless, Israel has maintained an outsider role with regards to the future of Afghanistan. Now, these are the three main national interests which has been highlighted in the article, upon which India is maintaining a balanced foreign policy approach with regards to the major West Asian powers, that is Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. Wherever the first national interest that this article talks about is of terrorism and security. And what is happening is that Saudi Arabia intends to curtail the influence of terrorist groups which are supported by Iran. And this curbing of terrorist groups by Saudi Arabia actually aligns with India's national interest, whereby there should not be any state sponsorship for any terrorist organizations around the world. However, what is happening with Iran is that it continues to support terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah, which is against India's stand of having no state sponsorship for terrorist organizations. But where both Saudi Arabia and Iran differ with regards to India is that in fight against Pakistan's sponsored terrorist organization, it is Iran which has threatened Pakistan to support its state sponsorship for terrorist organization, whereby Saudi Arabia has maintained a balanced approach whereby it has condemned terrorist attacks which are happening in India, but it has not put any form of pressure on Pakistan to stop those terrorist attacks. However, what is different is India's approach with Israel, whereby both India and Israel have condemned any form of terrorist organization or state sponsorship of terrorist organization around the world. And similarly, Israel has also supported India against the terrorist organization which are based in Pakistan. The second national interest is of economic opportunity, whereby what has happened is that the US sanctions upon Iran makes it an unlikely partner that can invest within India. However, Saudi Arabia has recently promised to invest $100 billion within India. And what is being seen is that Saudi Arabia provides much more better commercial economic opportunity for India as compared to Iran. However, as you already know, that India has also invested within the Chabahar port within Iran, which provides India a connectivity to Central Asia and to Afghanistan. And this Indian investment in Chabahar port provides India with strategic economic opportunity within Iran. And therefore, a common difference between Saudi Arabia and Iran is that Saudi Arabia provides a commercial economic opportunity for India, whereas Iran provides a strategic economic opportunity for India. However, what is different with Israel is that it provides both commercial and strategic economic opportunity for India, whereby India and Israel continue to invest with regards to desalination plant, artificial intelligence, and similarly both countries are also engaging in defense production. Now, the last major national interest that the article talked about is with regards to the future of Afghanistan, whereby what is being seen is that India and Iran have converged their foreign policy, whereby both want a limited role of the Taliban and of Pakistan within the future of Afghanistan. While India's foreign policy is different to the foreign policy which is being pursued by Saudi Arabia with regards to the future of Afghanistan, whereby Saudi Arabia has been supportive of the role of Taliban and of Pakistan within the future of Afghanistan. And apart from this, what is being seen with Israel is that Israel has maintained an outsider role with regards to the future of Afghanistan. So now hopefully you've gotten an overview of how India is able to maintain a balanced foreign policy approach with regards to three main national interests among the three West Asian powers, which are Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Israel. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this editorial from page 8. Now you should consider the explanation given in this section with regards to this editorial as a continuation of the understanding about the issues with regards to angel tax. Now, as you already know, angel tax is calculated when startups receive funding which is higher than their fair market value. And what is becoming the problem is that it has become extremely difficult for tax authorities to know as to what would be the fair market value of the startup company. Now, an example of this is, let's say there is a startup company which is delivering food through the use of app to passengers in a train. So what a person would do is install the app of this company, and within this app, the person would provide various information such as his seat number within the train, the food item the person wants to be delivered to his seat, and the station at the time in which the person wants the food to be delivered to his seat. Now let's say the share of this startup company is being traded at rupees 10, and what is happening is that an investor comes in and buys the share of this startup company at rupees 50. Now the problem with this is that the tax authorities would not know as to what is the fair market value of this company, as to whether they should calculate the fair market value of this company at rupees 10 or whether they should calculate the fair market value of this company at rupees 50. And similarly with several startups which are engaging in a new form of business, there is no other company to which the tax authorities can compare the fair market value. Whereby let's say there are several startup companies which have launched an app through which we could book flight tickets. So it becomes easier for the tax authorities to compare any new startups which launches a business of providing opportunity to book flight tickets through an app to already available companies such as Make My Trip, Yatra, and others. So let's say if the market share for Make My Trip is being sold at rupees 50, and similarly the share for yatra.com is being shared at rupees 45. So similarly for any new startup company which sells flight tickets through apps, the tax authorities would know that the fair market value would be between the range of 45 to 50. However, what is happening is that various startups have now started a business in which there are no prior companies, and therefore it becomes difficult for the tax authority to come to a fair market value for this new startup company. Now, the problem arises with regards to investment within startups, Now let's say the share of this company is being traded at rupees 10 and some new investor comes in who buys this share at rupees 50. Now it became very difficult for the tax authorities to understand as to whether this rupees 10 is the market fair value of this company or rupees 50 is the fair market value of this company. And what the tax authorities started to do is tax 30% of these rupees 50 or 30% of the investment that a startup has gotten as part of its angel tax. And therefore, this 30% taxation under the angel tax was heavily criticized in the sense that it would decrease the foreign and the domestic investment in Indian startups. And therefore, with regards to this, the government of India brought in new rules with regards to angel tax, whereby they said that investment up to rupees 25 crores based on certain conditions will be exempted from this new angel tax. And similarly, the government of India also exempted investment made by NRIs into Indian startups. Now, what this editorial is trying to highlight are various concerns with regards to the new rules, whereby the first concern which has been highlighted in the editorial is that companies who wish to make use of the latest exemption which has been given by the Government of India would now need to register with the Government of India as being startups. And by registering as startup companies, they also would have to follow several conditions, whereby they cannot invest in any land unrelated to the business, and similarly other conditions. And thereby, what this would do is hamper the autonomy that a startup in India should have to conduct their business. Now, the second main concern which has been highlighted in this editorial is that the new rules which have been given out by the Government of India still allow the opportunity for companies to launder money. And similarly, it also allows the opportunity for tax authorities to harass the startup companies. Whereby what was earlier happening is that some individual would start a startup company, then have its share it at rupees 10. And what would happen is that another person who has laundered some money from India would invest within the startup at rupees 50. And thereby this procedure of investment within startup companies, which was earlier exempted from tax, was then being used to launder money. And what the editorial is highlighting is that even though there are certain conditions which have been put up in the amount of money that can be invested within startups before being taxed, it can still be used to launder small amounts of money. And similarly, another problem with the angel tax was that it can be used by the tax authorities to harass the new startup companies. And what the editorial is highlighting that irrespective of the new rules which have been given, it provides no opportunity or safeguard for startup companies to not be harassed by the tax authorities. Now, it is within this regard that the new rules which have been given out by the Government of India with regards to angel tax has been called as half measures by this editorial. But hopefully you've gotten a crux as to what this editorial talks about. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 1. Now what this article talks about is that the Assam rifles which have been deployed along the Myanmar border have been empowered by the central government to arrest anyone and search a place without a warrant within the border districts of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Nagaland and Mizoram. Now what you need to understand is that the government of India has already put on hold this notification which was earlier released. Whereby what the government of India now has said is that it is going to consult the state governments of Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Nagaland and Mizoram before granting any form of permission to the Assam Rifles to arrest anyone or to search any place without a warrant. And since this notification which this article talks about has been put on hold by the government of India, we should consider this news as being in transition. Now, what we're going to do with regards to this article is understand about the Assam Rifles, and we're going to understand about them from the perspective of GS Paper 3 within the section Security and within the subsection Various Security Forces and Agencies and their mandate. Now, there are 5 aspects about the Assam Rifles on which there are several facts, and you need to remember all of these facts with regards to your mains examination. Now, the first aspect is the origin of Assam Rifles. Now, the Assam Rifles came into being in 1835 and were called the Kesher Levy. Now, this Kesher Levy was formed by the British India government to primarily protect the British tea estates and their settlements which were located in the northeast region. And what later on happened is that the British India government changed the name of Kesher Levy to the Frontier Force and also changed their mandate to conduct expeditions across the borders of Assam. However, again in 1870, the Frontier Force was changed into the Assam Military Police Battalions. And what happened is that during World War I, this Assam Military Police Battalion was tasked by the British government in the Middle East and in Europe. And after World War I in 1917, the Assam Military Police Battalion was changed to Assam Rifles. And therefore, the origin of Assam Rifles belongs to the period of British India. The second aspect that you need to know about the Assam Rifle is its post independence history. Now, after India's independence, the Assam Rifles took part in the China War of 1962. Apart from that, they were also part of the Indian peacekeeping force which was sent to Sri Lanka under Operation Pavan. And apart from this, the Assam Rifles also plays a peacekeeping role within the northeastern states of India. Now, the third aspect that you need to know about the Assam Rifle is its main objective. Now, the first main objective of the Assam Rifle is to conduct counterinsurgency operations within the northeast. Apart from this, the Ministry of Home Affairs can also deploy the Assam Rifles for counterinsurgency operations in other parts of India if it considers necessary. Now, apart from this, during peacetime, Assam Rifles also tries to ensure the security of Indo-China and Indo-Myanmar border. However, as of now, they have been deployed along the Myanmar border to monitor and check infiltration. And the Assam Rifles are the main border security force which is acting on the Indo-Myanmar border. And this is an important fact that you should remember, that India-China border is protected by the Indo-Tibetan Border Police Force, while the India-Bangladesh and the India-Pakistan border is protected by the Border Security Force or the BSF, while the India-Nepal border and the India-Bhutan border is protected by the Seema Sashastra Bal or the SSB, while the India-Myanmar border is protected by the Assam Rifles. And this is an important differentiation that you should also remember with regards to your upcoming prelims examination. Now, the fourth aspect that you need to know about the Assam Rifle is about its control and command structure. Now, the overall control of the Assam Rifle is vested with the Ministry of Home Affairs, whereby the Ministry of Home Affairs controls the Assam Rifles through the Director General of Assam Rifles or the DGAR. And this DGAR is an officer of the rank of Lieutenant General or an LG who belongs to the Indian Army. And there is an important differentiation with regards to the command structure of Assam Rifles that you need to understand. Now, the Inspectorate General of the Assam Rifles, who works under the Director General of Assam Rifles or the DJR, are under the operational control of the Indian Army. However, with regards to administrative control, they are under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, this is an important distinction that has been made for the Assam Rifles, whereby their operational control is under the Army, whereas the administrative control is under the Ministry of Home Affairs. And this has been done because of the mandate of the Assam Rifles. So whenever they're participating in conventional combat role or peacekeeping forces or in insurgency operations or any other operations, they're under the control of the Indian Army. However, with regards to administrative control, such as recruitment, deployment, transfers and other aspects, they're under the control of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now, the fifth and the last point that you need to remember about the Assam Rifles for your mains examination are its various features. Now, the Assam Rifles are fondly called the Friends of the Northeast people, and they're also one of the highest awarded and decorated paramilitary force of India. Apart from this, an important fact that you should know is that Director General of the Assam Rifles is the ex-officio security advisor to the Northeast Council of India. Now, the Northeast Council is the nodal agency for the economic and social development of the northeastern states, and it consists of 8 states, which are Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, and also Sikkim. And the Director General of the Assam Rifles is the ex-officio security advisor to the Northeast Council. Now, these are the main facts that you needed to remember with regards to the Assam Rifles for your mains examination within your GS Paper 3 under the section Security. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, we have taken this article from page 13. Now, what has happened is that the Digital Communications Commission, which is the highest decision-making body for the telecom sector, has allowed for the fiber which has been laid out under the BharatNet program to be leased or sold to private players. Now, what is required to be understood from this article are various facts about BharatNet and also about Digital Communications Commission from the perspective of your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. Now, the main objective of the BharatNet project is to provide high-speed broadband connection to Gram Panchayats as a form of middle-mile connectivity. And after providing high-speed broadband connectivity to Gram Panchayats, it can then further be utilized to provide last-mile connectivity to individuals who are living within that Gram Panchayat. And therefore this last mile connectivity to people who are living within the Gram Panchayat would need to be provided by service providers such as telecommunication service providers, internet service providers, and others. And this is a common differentiation that you need to remember, that BharatNet project does not provide last mile connectivity directly to the people, whereby it provides connectivity to the Gram Panchayats, and there onwards service providers can provide connectivity to people who are living within that Gram Panchayat. Now the second point that you need to know about the BharatNet project is that under its phase 1, the target of providing connectivity to 1 lakh Gram Panchayats was already done by December of 2017. And what is currently happening is that the BharatNet project is under its phase 2, whereby it plans to connect around 1,50,000 Gram Panchayats by March of 2019. Now phase 2 should be completed by 31st March of 2019, and therefore it is yet to be seen as to whether BharatNet project is able to achieve its target that were given under phase 2. And we would know whether they have been able to achieve their target under phase 2 after 31st March of 2019. Now the third aspect that you need to know is that the BharatNet project is being funded by the Universal Services Obligation Fund. And under this Universal Services Obligation Fund, the money is being raised by imposing a universal access levy on various telecommunication and broadband operators. Now what happens is that various broadband and telecommunication operators use various licenses which is given out by the Department of Telecommunications. And after that what happens is that a universal access levy is then imposed on a percentage of the revenue that has been earned by these operators. And after that the money which has been earned under the universal access levy is then provided under the Universal Services Obligation Fund. And after that, this Universal Services Obligation Fund is then used to fund the BharatNet project. The fourth point that you need to remember is the Bharat Broadband Network Limited has been entrusted with the responsibility for the establishment, management, and operation of the BharatNet project. And the last fact that you need to remember about the BharatNet project is that the Ministry of Telecommunication is the nodal ministry for this project. Now these are the 5 main points that you need to remember about the BharatNet project with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. So now hopefully you understood about the BharatNet project. Now let us understand about the Digital Communications Commission, whereby we have understood the BharatNet project from the perspective of economy, whereas you should see the Digital Communications Commission from the perspective of polity and governance. Now the first point that you need to know is that the National Digital Communications Policy, which was released in 2018, redesignated the earlier Telecom Commission as being the Digital Communications Commission. Now the reason as to why the National Digital Communications Policy of 2018 redesignated the Telecom Commission as the Digital Communications Commission so as to ensure the effective implementation and monitoring of the National Digital Communications Policy of 2018. Now the third point that you need to remember is that the Secretary to the Department of Telecommunication is the ex officio chairman of the Digital Communications Commission. And the last aspect that you need to remember are the various objectives or the functions of the Digital Communications Commission, whereby it is responsible for formulating the policy of the Department of Telecommunications and also to get the approval of the Government of India for the policy that it has proposed for the Department of Telecommunications. Apart from this, the Digital Communications Commission also prepares the budget for the Department of Telecommunications. And the last function of the Digital Communication Commission that you need to know is that it implements all the government policies in all matters that are related to telecommunications. Now these are 4 points about the Digital Communications Commission that you need to remember with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 11. Now what has happened is that the Supreme Court has directed all the chief secretaries of 21 states across India to evict or remove those individuals who claim to be forest dwellers but have been rejected under the Forest Rights Act of 2006 as being forest dwellers. And what the Supreme Court decision would do is that it would lead to the eviction of lakh of people who belong to the scheduled tribes and other traditional forest dwellers from the forest area. Now you have to understand that this news is currently in transition, whereby we'll have to wait and see as to how the Government of India moves forward with regards to this decision by the Supreme Court. Now what you need to understand from this article is about the Forest Rights Act of 2006. Now, the Forest Right Act of 2006 has been comprehensively covered by Mangal sir in the Daily News Simplified video of 11th of February. And what I'll do is provide you the link to this video and you can understand about the Forest Right Act of 2006 from the DNS video of 11th of February. And so now with this, let us move on to the next section. Now there are two questions for your practice, whereby question 1 reads, which among the following statement is correct about the Northeast Council of India? Now the first statement states, it consists of 7 members who are the sister states of the Northeast. The second statement reads, Director General of Assam Rifles is the ex officio security advisor to the Northeast Council. Select the correct answer from the codes given below. Now the question number 2 reads, which among the following statement is correct about BharatNet? Whereas the first statement reads, BSNL is the establishment and operating body of the project. The second statement reads, it is being funded by the Universal Service Obligation Fund. And what you need to do is pause this video, solve both of these questions, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now with regards to question number 1, the correct answer is B, 2 only, whereby the Northeast Council of India consists of 8 members, which include the 7 sister states of the Northeast plus Sikkim. Whereas with regards to question number 2, the correct answer is B, 2 only, whereby it is not BSNL but the Bharat Broadband Network Limited or BBNL, which is the establishment and operating body of the BharatNet project. Now there are 2 more questions for your practice, whereby question 3 reads, United Nations Security Council 1267 resolution is primarily associated with which of the following aspect? Wherein the first option is that it designates a sanction regime against terrorists and organizations within Afghanistan. The second option is that it pursues the objectives of the Paris Agreement. The third option is that it leads to the expansion of permanent members of United Nations Security Council. And the last option is that it is associated with the most favored nation status. Now question 4 reads, which among the following share a land border with each other? Whereby there are 3 options. First is Saudi Arabia, second is Israel, and third is Iran. And as you already understand, what you need to do is pause this video, solve both of these questions, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now the correct answer to question number 3 is A, whereby the United Nations Security Council 1267 resolution designates a sanction regime against terrorists and terrorist organizations that are working in Afghanistan. And it is under the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1267 that the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden were designated as terrorist and terrorist organizations within Afghanistan. And it is under the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1267 that India had tried that the chief of the Jaish-e-Mohammed, Masood Azhar, is designated as a global terrorist, as he is also a terrorist within Afghanistan. However, what is happening is that India's attempt to designate Masood Azhar as being a global terrorist is being opposed and vetoed by China. Whereby what is happening in the United Nations Security Council is that the United States, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom have supported designating Masood Azhar as a global terrorist. However, this attempt of India is being opposed and vetoed by China. Now, it is within this context that the United Nations Security Council 1267 resolution becomes an important current event of international importance for your upcoming prelims examination. Now the correct answer to question number 4 is D, none of the above, whereby Saudi Arabia, Israel and Iran do not share a border. And now with this we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.